let's do this thing. Coming at you a little early today because I gotta get out of here and get on to some other stuff. Title, Let It Melt. So, fun little story. We got some water going on in the gym. So if you're not from here or you haven't been here this week, you missed out on some exciting stuff. Got some water coming through my roof. So yesterday I had a couple of good buddies helping me out, getting up on top of the roof and putting our fitness to action, putting it to work, clearing off hundreds of pounds of snow and ice and water off of our gloriously flat roof. So big shout out, Andy, Alex, Ethan, Andrew. You guys are great. Spent the better part of the day yesterday clearing that off. Haven't totally fixed the problem, but we're working in the right direction. So let it melt. Folks, if you got flat roofs, clear them off. If you got any issues like that, you're probably aware of them this week. But it's interesting. So I mentioned already, like, hey, this is an opportunity to put your earned fitness to work. You know, climb up on a ladder, get to work, pushing some snow around, breaking up some ice. So that's one element of kind of how our principles of health play into that. But maybe the more important one is situations like that, how you handle stress, right? A saying I've become fond of is there is no situation in which a bad attitude cannot make worse. So definitely having to practice some of that, some I wouldn't even call it stress management. It's more like it's a test of your character. It's a test of your own self-rule and virtue when you come up against stuff like that. Are you going to freak out? Are you going to, be fussy about it? Or are you just going to honestly be able to laugh and to say, wow, this does kind of suck, but I'm going to remain joyful through it. And get to work, right? Just do what needs to be done. Did I want to be up on there shoveling snow yesterday? No, I kind of had a free day and a handful of other tasks that could have been done, should have been done, and they were less urgent than the water spilling through from the ceiling. So stress has massive physical ramifications. It is absolutely a driver of poor health in the body. Throws off your hormones, raises cortisol, gets that flowing way more than it needs to be. Does work to damage relationships, and all of that stuff is really a burden on your body, right? We talk about give your body what it needs, stay away from what it doesn't. Carrying around stress like that, not good. So we had an opportunity to practice that a little bit this week. Now, into our regularly scheduled programming here. So this week, our principle has been the human body needs times of feasting on and fasting from food in order to survive and thrive. So behind this principle is an understanding of simply when to eat and a little bit of how to eat. So I'm going to pose a couple of these questions that we asked and get into a concept that we've been kind of teasing out this week. So again, kind of going through some assessment type of questions, asking like, hey, what do you do here, right? So the first question I asked this week was just, do you have a regular eating schedule throughout a normal day? You know when you're going to eat. Last week we talked in part about what you're going to eat some real foods, okay? Most of the time, create meals out of real foods. But when you eat is what we're saying is kind of maybe one of the second most important things about, our eating practices. So do you know, right, when those things are throughout your normal days? And even, it's like, as I observe my own life, there's a couple standard days, and then, weekends look a little bit different, but week over week, Saturday looks pretty similar. Sunday looks pretty similar, even though that may not look the same as, Monday through Friday. Second question was, do you have any regular rhythms of extending beyond that normal? So everybody has some period of, intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, because hopefully you stop eating at night at some point and don't eat again until sometime the next day, right? And so we all have a little bit of that, and it's become more popular to kind of stretch that out and play with that period of time, but doing something a little bit different than what you would normally do, right? So like I have one day throughout the week where I'm pushing that a little bit further than what I do all the other days, right? So normally I eat my first meal at a certain time, and then I have, at least one day a week where I'm pushing that a little bit further, right? And then on top of that, having maybe, whether it's like monthly or quarterly or yearly times of maybe even going beyond that. So lots of benefits with fasting. It's not actually what I want to talk about today. The question I posed today was, do you actually eat enough in your meals? So the point of asking this question is about what that does to us when we're not eating meals. If we don't actually get the nutrition we need during our meal times, we're going to start to develop practices and habits outside of those meal times that aren't as good. So a couple things play into this. Generally, when people are conscious of what they're eating and they're trying to make good decisions about what they eat, generally when they create a meal, it's pretty good, right? They are not, making a meal with some of the worst foods that you can eat. They're constructing a meal using real foods, and end up in a pretty good place. But now, if you're not actually eating enough of those good whole real foods, and an hour or two later, all of a sudden you're feeling like you need to eat again, is it more likely you're going to grab less good foods during those times when you want to snack? It's far more likely that you're going to eat something not as good in those times versus create a meal that is less than ideal, right? When you have a meal that's like, hey, it's pizza night, or hey, it's date night, or we're going out, hey, we're going to a party. It's like you're doing those things far more intentionally, and we'll get to that with our last kind of nutritional tenet. But this difference between, on a normal day, where are we getting our calories from? Ideally, we want to construct our meals in a way that those contain all the nutrition that we need. And so what that also means is that in between those meals, we aren't relying on other calories from other places to get what we need throughout the day, right? So that eating all of the time, that's actually one of the things that really hurts us when we look down at how that's affecting us hormonally, for example. So when we look at blood sugar regulation, what we want is to eat a big meal, let that rise, right, in response to that food, and then let your body do the work that it's designed to do to bring that back down to your basal level. When we don't eat enough there, right, when we're not actually satiated from that meal, that'll spike, we'll respond to that. But then if an hour or two later, it's like, man, I want to grab that bag of chips, now we're going up again, right? And so we kind of live in this higher state, this high blood sugar state, where the body's producing insulin kind of all day long to take that sugar out of the blood, right, and put it to use. And then if we're not living an active lifestyle, that is the route to chronic disease. That is the route to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and the whole cascade of chronic disease that flows in that direction. So even when we are highly active, so we can get away with doing things like eating more frequently, and to an extent, there's some of that we should take into consideration. Yesterday, perfect example. I went for a jog in the morning, and then I wasn't planning to do this, so went for a jog, had a good big full meal after that, and then I wasn't planning on being super active throughout the day, but that's what happened in the day. Burned tons of calories, had a bajillion steps logged on my watch, and it gets to like the middle of the afternoon, and I am like, I need fuel, right? And so it's actually good to eat to fuel your activity. That's like when we think about quantity of food, how much should we be eating? We want that to map to your activity level. I want everybody to be as active as they possibly can and eat to fuel that activity, right? So I needed to do that yesterday. However, if I weren't super active like that, and granted, we're talking about I ate big in the morning. I had like a mid-afternoon snack type of thing because I was feeling tired and weak, and it's like I needed some fuel. And then I still just had my regular, bigger second meal in the evening. That's, kind of how my days go. I break it up into 2 big meals. If we're not active and we get in this routine of, eating frequently, you not only are keeping that blood sugar high all the time, but also if you don't have the activity that's putting a lot of that stuff to use, it's a recipe for disaster. So generally, I like to encourage people to, even if you are active, lean into this as much as you can. Try to eat big and then not eat, right? Develop those rhythms, because overall, that's one of the best things. And then when your activity is maybe higher than normal, it's like, great, like fuel that activity, right? But just some general principles there. So fasting from food, it's a way to thrive. Workouts this week. 2 things I wanted to hit on. So on Tuesday, we had this workout. It was an EMOM workout, one of those jargon words. EMOM, E-M-O-M, every minute on the minute. So there's a lot of different ways to utilize this style of workout. Whether you want to write it in a way where you put an amount of work in that 60-second window that's going to be challenging to complete, right? That's one way to write a workout like that, where you say, hey, you got to get through, and you're kind of forcing a certain pace when you're doing that. There's another way to write a workout like this, where you're intentionally writing it with less work than what 60 seconds would permit, right? So you put a workload in there, and it's like that each minute you're gonna, so this was some lunges, right? There's 12 lunges in this minute. Well, even at a really, really moderate pace, getting those 12 lunges is not an issue within that time constraint, and it wasn't supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be easy from a time perspective, right? 12 toes to bar. You can get through those, even if you got to break those up. 60 seconds is plenty of time to get through those, right? But if we can use some of these rest intervals to kind of keep you fresh, to be able to continue putting in good work, we can actually do something interesting with volume that just is far different than if we were to say, hey, there's no rest here. You're going to go through this whole thing, as quickly as possible, right? You might break up those sets more when you go from one movement to the next, and all the while your heart rate is increasing. So you have to, break those up. when we use an EMOM, right, to do this type of thing, you don't get as much of the aerobic, increase. Your heart rate does not go as high. And so you kind of get through this work and might not necessarily feel as though, hey, I just, ran from the bear type of feeling and laid it all out there. What you might not then realize is just how much work you actually did. So did this workout and, going through it, I did put in, another movement here where I basically on the 3rd minute, maximum reps of just one of those movements. So try and accumulate as much work as possible on one of those movements rather than all those movements. And then followed by some rest, right? So we did have a little bit of aerobic demand with one of those movements, not throughout the whole thing. But you get done with it and it's like, man, feel good. That wasn't like crazy challenging. But then I wake up the next day, I'm like, holy buckets, right? My legs hurt, my quads, my glutes. It's like, I didn't feel like I did all of that work. Well, sometimes psychologically, we do this thing where if we're not huffing and puffing and breathing and all this stuff, we might not feel like we did something. But clearly that response, like, wow, we get a little bit of soreness, shows that, hey, that was a good appropriate dose, right? We got the breakdown we're looking for. Body then recovers, and this is how we have that whole adaptation process. We'll talk about that more when we get to some of the movement type of stuff. But contrasting that with a day like today. So today, we had this workout, calories on the rower, burpees over the rower, okay? Descending rep scheme, 24 down to 9, descending 3 reps every time. So this is like the exact opposite type of workout. As you're going through this, what you're managing is your heart rate, right? Not peaking, right? You're trying to find a sustainable pace to be able to maintain for the majority of this workout. So I'm going to talk about a different piece of that here in a second, but like you're feeling that aerobically pretty much the whole time here, and you get done and you're gassed, right? But the amount of load and volume through these movements actually isn't crazy, right? I don't think anybody, unless you're, just starting out and just kind of building up your conditioning, I don't think anybody's going to be like completely wrecked by a workout like this if you're in a normal routine and if we scaled it appropriately. So I'm telling you, so like for me and most of our members, you're not going to feel a ton of effect from this workout tomorrow, but in the midst of it, it definitely felt way worse than that EMOM on Tuesday, right? Totally different stimulus. Kind of contrasting those two things. Here's another thing. Get through this workout. So everybody can row. Everybody can do some variation of a burpee, all right? Going through this workout, if you're not well experienced with how to pace something out, there's always this temptation to actually go too fast and then have to like stop and like regain your composure. So that's what I was saying about finding a sustainable pace as you're going through. But a workout like this is kind of like you're going to do 90% of the work to gain an opportunity. And that opportunity is finding that moment. So right near the end of the workout, right? You've kind of sustained, kind of flirted with that line of how fast is too fast, right? Maximum sustainable pace for the majority of the effort. And then the goal is that somewhere in that last round, you're going to pick a moment where you kind of unleash, right? You actually push your pace. You exert what is truly an unsustainable effort. You start pulling on the rower harder, you start jumping faster on those burpees, and your heart rate starts to cross that line, right? You get into that kind of danger zone where cognitively, right, your brain is telling you, you better slow down or something bad is going to happen, right? The goal is that we could time that perfectly so that we can push as hard as we possibly can through the very final rep and hit the floor with nothing left, right? And that opportunity really is like you put in all of this work leading up to, let's say, the last minute of this workout to get a chance to be in that space and choose to not just kind of coast it in at the end, and actually like that last minute is really where we can get some fitness done. So this is not to boast, but I'm going head to head with somebody this morning. Won't mention his name, doctor. And I'm ahead of him going into the last set. And I had this moment where it's like, I know now's the time to push. To beat him, right? I didn't need to, right? So this is the difference between training and competition. So if we were like competing and it was a race head to head, there's no reason why I would exert more energy in that moment if it was, the difference between beating him by 1 second versus beating him by 30 seconds. However, I didn't want to do that, right? I kind of earned this opportunity to push here, to make myself better and, actually improve. And so instead of just mailing it in, right, coasting through the finish because I know I was ahead of him, no, I got to that last set and I wanted to go all out and push myself, make myself better, right, through that whole process. So, some interesting stuff. We can really dissect what's going on with a lot of these things. The further and further we go in understanding the intent behind some of this stuff and all that. So that's kind of fun. All right. We're continuing to prepare ourselves for the Open, the CrossFit Games Open. I haven't signed up yet, but I will. Maybe I'll say, hey, by this time next week, I'll be on that leaderboard. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to get together and do these workouts. We're about a month out from the first workout of that. Past couple of years, we've been in a good rhythm of we do those on Saturday mornings, so they get announced Thursday nights, and then that gives us an opportunity to maybe if we need to make any adjustments to, the Friday workout to like be less conflicting with, hey, what we're going to do on Saturday. That gives us that opportunity and whatnot. Getting together Saturday morning, throwing down, doing these open workouts. So if you're thinking about it, let me encourage you. Do it. Stop thinking about it. Just do it. So we've been continuing to prep for that. And let's look at next week here. Wherever it is. There we go. So next week, continuing our nutritional principles. So getting into macronutrients. We say high fat, moderate protein, low carb, right? But what the heck does that mean? Well, we're going to dig into that next week. May not be what you think initially hearing that. There's a pretty big range that we believe kind of falls into a good, healthy space. Other than that, we've got our last couple of max lifts. Going to do some Olympic lifting next week, some snatch and clean and jerk. And then pulling out an old open workout for next week from 2011. I actually don't think I've ever done this one, but I like it. So I'm excited to try that one. So as always, hit the whatever the kids say, the like, the share, the do the stuff, right? Tell your mom, tell your kids and your friends, coworkers, all that stuff. Couple days left. This is next Thursday's February. So this is the last time I'm going to be on here telling you that you could still get that deal first month for $65. Follow the link wherever and put the code in there. Still got time. Other than that, you can always buy your t-shirts. I changed my shirt this week and went back to Old Faithful. This is my favorite sweatshirt. I love this shirt. The left chest thing here. It's my favorite. You can get your own. newcity.fitness/store, shop, one of those. Follow the links, guys. That's all. I've got some ideas about bringing some other people on here. You maybe coming soon. Special guest. I want to get on here and chop it up, talking about some stuff with his newfound journey of fitness and pursuing this type of stuff. So stay tuned for that. I think that's all. I didn't make any notes. We're just flying. How long have I been on here? Where's my little timer at? Yeah, I can sit here and talk for 25 minutes just off the cuff. It's just what happens, guys. Okay, we'll see you.